get this thing kicked off. Well, this is the FRC Symposium, and it's May 25th of 2013. It's the inaugural community outreach of Northwestern University to the FRC teams in the Chicago area. And the topic today, we're going to talk about team dynamics, team structure, and fundraising. Now, my name is Keith Hall. I am the senior mentor for the state of Illinois, and kind of maybe a little bit responsible for putting this together in that I gave Helen, who is our host today, gave her the seed of the idea and supported her and let her run with it and develop it. And it has really paid off well. Now, I have worked in the computer industry for a good number of years. In computers, I mean the mainframe world. I was always in the banks and the insurance companies, the big processors, that sort of stuff, credit card information. And one thing I learned is every time IBM was sitting at the table at the meeting, and you ask IBM a question, they will always give you the same response, no matter what you ask. Will it do this? Can I make it do that? Can I have it go this way? And the answer that IBM always gives you is, well, that depends. So, why is that a good answer? Well, because, yeah, you might be able to do it that way, or you might be able to make it work this way, or, your team dynamics might work that way, or fundraising might work this way. But that depends. And you need to qualify it, and you need to understand what works in your environment. So, is there any particular area, team dynamic structure, or fundraising, or anything related to that anyone has a particular idea they'd like to start discussions on?
Fundraising?
Fundraising? Okay. So, what are some of the fundraising things we do now? What do you do? How do you raise funds? Yes?
What do we crowdfunding?
What do you mean by crowdfunding?
So online fundraising, like through something like Kickstarter, like websites like that, applications like that.
Okay.
I didn't hear that.
Crowdfunding, so websites like Kickstarter where you can just host a project online and people can donate to your
Okay. So crowdfunding?
yeah.
What we do at my school is we have like small social events. Like recently we had what was like movie night, and we showed 6 different movies in 6 different rooms, and we charged like it was like a certain amount, like $5 or so. And basically they would get pizza and snacks, and that helped a lot. I think we raised like $300 just doing it alone.
Anyone else?
How much are teams typically looking to raise?
Good question. How much? Do you know?
I know the first game was 5,000, and the second game was 4,000 or 3,000.
What's for that? And then materials, maybe another 2,000-3,000 on top of that. I think our budget the last couple of years has been 30,000.
It's pretty typical. It's tough to do if you have no major sponsor. But the downside of having a major sponsor is you can be going along really strong for a while, and then the major sponsor has a bad year. Now what do you do? So everybody faces this at one point or another. Even some of the oldest, strongest teams have to reach out. We do have some safety nets involved. If you have the loss of a major sponsor, say you could even say your school was helping you. We do have at NASA has a sustaining grant, which will help you get over that. But they want to know your business plan. How are you going to get past this? They're not going to just hand the money over to you and say, okay, here. And, so you have to put together a plan to get over it. What are some other things teams do? I know several that I haven't heard mentioned, but anybody else have? The tried and truths to get, I'm sorry.
Well, what we're trying to do now is to come up with a document of some sort to talk about the team, talk about what FIRST is about, and what the potential sponsor might get benefits from from donating. And also trying to emphasize that it's not just money, if there's any materials or resources or support, it's also there. So that's something new, because like you mentioned, Keith, about a major sponsor, and we've been fortunate to have a major sponsor for the last 4 years. And if they go away, then we don't know what we do. So we're trying to look for a number of smaller grants or donations to help us along with those things.
Many of the teams, there's a lot of polarized teams in FRC. Some of them, the Motorola team. Well, guess who sponsors them? Motorola, right? And then you have teams that are from, rural areas. The one I see quite often, like at Purdue, is Crown Point. They have a very different model at Crown Point. There isn't a major employer. Crown Point is basically a bed and breakfast commuting town, and most of the people either work in the iron mills, the steel mills up in the Gary area, or they commute all the way to Chicago. There's no industry there. And what they do is they have, instead of one big sponsor, they have a list of about 100 smaller sponsors who give them, $2, $3, some maybe $1,000. And they're constantly adding to that list, because every year some of them fall off. And they have a parents group they're just dedicated to going out and promoting it. And by the way, you said brochure. I picked this up at the Midwest Regional, and I think it's excellent. It's, kind of flashy, and it's who are we, what are we doing, and it's immediately trying to sell me Dean's light bulbs. Okay, so that's a fundraiser that we use. Then it talks about, a little more about the program, and then if you open it up, there's the form to fill out and send in your donation. So, this can be very useful. You can drop these off at businesses all around and hope it comes in. So the form is definitely an awesome idea. You might want to steal some ideas from that.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I had more. I asked them if you had it like on a PDF format so that I could email it around, but I never got a reply to that. I think that's working for them, and they want to. Teams will share things, but within limits.
Our team does something very similar to that, where we have a trifold brochure, and it's not nearly as fancy printed, it's just on regular paper. And then we do a cardstock insert that has information and a form on it to send money back. But what we ask for, instead of just kind of a blank, give us money and you don't know us, so it may go into a void, or you may see some benefit from it, but we sell them spots on the back of our shirts that we wear on Thursdays. So the back of our shirt every year for Thursdays, it's a new shirt every year, and then it has, similar to like Little League sports that are sponsored by several different places around town and local donors.
Yeah.
Yeah, my team also did that this year, and we also sold sticker spots on the actual robot. Like if you donated a certain amount of money, you would get like a certain size sticker on the plexiglass on the side of a robot or something like that.
One of the teams, I think it was the Monty Python, which is Trinity. So they had this concept, and it was just wonderful. What they did was they took little strips of paper. Remember making paper chains when you were, and what they would do is any small cash donation, like $5 from grandma or $1 from somebody, they'd write your name on the little strip, and then they'd add it to the chain. And in their pits, they hang that up, and they call it the chain of support. Now, you're not going to probably fund an FRC team $5 at a time, but if you get, a couple hundred of those, you may pay for the hotels overnight. I thought that was a very interesting idea.
Or pay for pizza.
Pay for, yeah, well, food, yeah. It all adds up. Another interesting thing I've seen teams doing is they will approach Wendy's, McDonald's, any of the franchise. Somebody owns this franchise, and typically they own more than one. if you talk to the owners of these franchises, they have incentives to donate back. So what you can ask them for is some percentage of their gross take during a low period, because they know you will try to drive business into their restaurant. For example, the Wendy's, one of the Wendy's franchises in Hammond, the Team 71, from 2 to 4 p.m. every Thursday, they get 10% of what comes in the cash register. As a consequence, guess where we have all the Hammond meetings? At Wendy's, between 2 and 4 p.m. on Thursdays, right? So everybody benefits, and it's a really nice, it's an annuity for a team. The money keeps coming in. So it's definitely worth asking about those. Another thing that I've seen is the proverbial, the spaghetti dinner. Now there's a lot of church groups and I don't know if I've seen golf club people doing spaghetti dinners. So a nice variation on that is you have a chili dinner. And so you get everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing fine, thanks. You get everybody to, everybody's mom makes their best chili. And everybody makes chili just a little different. There's no two chilies all alike, right? Big crock pots, and you charge, I don't know, $5, $10 at the door. And you just have the bowls and the spoons, you know, the disposables. You just have them set out, and you let people try all the different chilies. And you know what? That sells like hotcakes in some places. So maybe chili isn't the right thing, maybe, I don't know, whatever it is, but if there's a particular kind of food that would appeal to your area, your neighborhood, your community, that's another one. Car washes don't really work very well in Chicago, do they? How about bake sales? Do they have schools like to have things like that?
They bought, like, because I asked about it in my school, and they said all of it has to be bought if we're going to sell it.
So you can't actually bake something and sell it. It has to be in a sealed wrapper from a factory.
Yes.
And it defeats the point, doesn't it? I mean, I think most kids would buy cookies if you could, you know, how hard is it to cook up a batch of cookies and make a nice little fundraiser out of that? Any other suggestions, ideas?
But our team tried a number of years ago to do a video game. Not really a competition, but something, what was it?
We were trying, so basically like we had like, we bought all of our systems, which was Xbox, PS2s, and even handheld. And what we did was we set up in our JRPC room was stations where you could play, and you just charge, like, I think it was like $3 or $5 for entrance.
It's pretty innovative. I like it. It doesn't really cost you anything because, you know, you're not really donating anything. You're just letting someone else use something you've already bought. I really like that. That's a good idea. And I can see the kids, you know, would like that because they get to try all the different brands out there.
Another idea that one of my teammates and I, we've started to come up with was hosting like a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament at our school.
What?
Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. It's a card game.
Oh, a card game, okay.
So Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon, because we have like a lot of players, especially younger kids at our school, who love playing the game. And basically what we do, we charge entrance. But the only issue that we come up with is that we have to basically rent like a part of the room, like how we do on Saturdays, right? We have to rent like that part because of entrance, and also it won't only be in our school. We were going to invite people from like around in the area. So.
Now, by the way, if any of your parents work for places like Google or Bolton, or there's lots and lots and lots of funding available, but those grants are only available to employees with access to the corporate network. So it's definitely worthwhile to find out where everybody works, and if it's one of those brand names that is on the, you know, the brochures with first, you should probably ask them to inquire. There's probably a program inside their corporation where they can apply for funding for your team.
We didn't know we had like whole cafeterias that we were doing it. I don't know if it's specifically for first or if it's just one that like giving out these grants.
But I was wondering, is there any suggestions or people have had success with when they do approach like a franchisee or another company, how best to try to make a positive initial contact and will spur continued conversation? Because occasionally we'll get a contact and then nothing happens to that. But I don't know if anyone's had any experience with that.
I can tell you what other mentors have told me works and doesn't work. Having several adults go call on a business doesn't work. Taking the students, the robot, and one adult, and after introducing yourself, pushing the students and the robot this way, taking one step back, don't say a word, let the students explain what they're doing, what FIRST is, what they're learning. That works. Your students are definitely your best selling point. The genuine interest, the excitement, the enthusiasm they show, it can't be ignored, and people will donate. You do understand corporate laws in America, they can reduce their tax liability by donating to certain amounts, so that there is an incentive for them. They're looking for someone to give that money to, because it ends up back in their pocket anyway. But there's so many people out there, Save the Whales, it's just, who do they want to, who do they trust, what are they interested in? If you have any kind of technical, engineering, manufacturing, any kind of design company, architectural, ask them, are you having issues finding qualified people? If they say yes, which I'm sure they will, you say, well, that's what we're doing. We're encouraging students to pursue those kinds of careers. Any other? That was fundraising. Any other comments, suggestions? If you think of one later and want to blurt it out, go ahead. We have team dynamics and structure. Any preference on those? Well, I can, if I may be so bold, if I can pick on a gentleman I know is just finished their rookie year. Can I ask you to please explain what kind of a structure you put together for your first year FRC team?
Well, what we did was we kind of split our team up into different subgroups. We had like the kids that did drivetrain and built the chassis and kind of built like kind of the frame of the robot. And we had kids that worked on specialty parts, where that there was like the shooter, the climbing mechanism, all that kind of stuff. And then we had the electrical group, which put together our electronics, wired the robot together, made sure everything worked. And we had our programming team, which programmed the robot and worked on that kind of stuff. And we had a PR team, which kind of did community outreach and that sort of stuff. And that seemed to work pretty well for us this year.
That's pretty amazing you got that far in the first year. Most first year FRC teams, we tell them it's like the first year is just hang on and try to survive, take it for a spinner on the block. There's so much so fast. Usually there's only 2 or 3 teams, so you've definitely excelled. Now we also have a more veteran team here. Can you please, would you mind telling us a little how you're structured?
So it's actually very similar to his, except we all had captains for each subgroup. So there's a captain, or 2 captains actually, that was part of the drivetrain as well as the chassis, and actually oversaw the entire team. And then there was the PR group, and there was a captain. There was an electrical group, there was a captain. Then there was a programming team, that was a captain as well. And so we were sure to have captains, and what happened was that every Monday, we would have a Skype meeting with the mentors, and so we actually have a captain Skype meeting, which helped. It was as high as
Keep everybody in line and everybody working towards a common goal.
Yes, and we were sure to meet like 4 times a week, and each so like I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It was from 3:30 to like 6 and sometimes 7, and then on Saturdays we would meet from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Impressive. Any other FRC team represented here who could tell us about their structure?
Sure. So we have a high school student president, vice president, and secretary treasurer. And then we also have a coach, an assistant coach, and then we have mentors from Purdue University. And the mentors from Purdue University also have a leadership of a general team leader and then a technical lead. And then beyond that, we kind of split our students onto sub-teams. So there's technical sub-team, which has subgroups and specialization within it, depending on what the students are interested in. And then we have an animation sub-team, a website sub-team, and then our PR, which is what we call outreach and initiatives. And they work on documentation for all of the award submissions, and then also any outreach activities that our team is working on. A lot of layers, and we also usually have very close to 40 high school students every year, so it's a very large team.
This year was our first year we've had probably a good 4 or 15 that's stuck around. In the previous years, we've had 9 towards the end, so it's very hard to have divided subgroups, especially on occasion on a Saturday, we'd only have 4 students show up, and it's like, all right, it's all the electrical guys, so, all right, now you're gonna do mechanical, and you can just, just split up like that. It's interesting. I'm not mentioned, so what team are you with?
I'm from Team 461, which is Westside Boiler and Fusion in West Lafayette.
Okay. And you're lane tech?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see a little bit, sure. How many students did you have?
I think we were pretty fortunate with the amount of students we had considering the size of our school. It's 4,000 kids. So we had, I think, about 30 kids interested in joining the team. And I think a couple kind of left throughout the year, but we managed to keep about 25 kids until the end of the year, which was pretty good.
I'm curious on all levels, how do you introduce new students who come and say, well, I'm interested in being on an FRC team, but if you have one of these advanced schedules, like structures, I don't know if I want to be on PR or programming. I don't know. How do you integrate a new student who's unsure? Do you make them choose and then stick it out, or what do you do?
For our team, so basically, during the off season, and usually before, like it's preseason, like in August to like December, literally we're teaching we're not teaching. So we have like, and I know Lane Tech has this too, also homes too. We have open house, and so during open house we showcase our robot and last year's robot and what we did, how we did it, and it catches quite a few eyes at times. And it catches the eyes of parents because they hear about the scholarships. And so after that, those students, or even the students who are there as freshmen, they come in and they ask like, oh, well, what can we do, or what is this? And we have a preseason where we build certain things, like we work on them building gearboxes, or we introduce them to like programming, and we allow them to pick like, well, what interests you most? Do you like the idea of working with a computer? Do you want to go to electrical? And then if they like it, or if they don't like it, then they try something else. But they try all these things in the preseason.
Okay.
And then it's by like the actual season, come January like 7th, they make their decision.
And we're also a small team, so a lot of times you have to wear multiple hats. So you do get exposure to other things.
I think with our team, we let students So throughout the fall and the off season, we usually meet 2 or 3 times a week. And we try to be very explicit at our like open of meeting session with them on what is going on at that meeting as far as the activities of all of the different subgroups. And they're completely welcome to go wherever they want for the like first half of the semester. And then we have them turn in interest forms and rank which sub-team they would like to be their primary sub-team. And then from that point on, we expect that they'll make a significant contribution to that sub-team, but they're also welcome to work with some of the others if there are projects that they're interested in. And then once we get to build season, we have alternate meeting schedules. So typically it's people that are interested in working on some of the less technical stuff, but then they may still want to like, I want to know a little bit about the robots, so can I help sometimes with that, but I really just want to like work on fundraising or awards or the animation, but I'm really not, super interested in the robot. So we have meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays that are general team meetings. So that's when you work on your primary sub-team stuff. And then we have team unofficial meetings unless you're on the technical sub-team every other day of the week except for Sunday. And any of the non-tech students are welcome to come in and work on their sub-team whenever they want, but they're required to be there Monday and Wednesdays of the week at everyone. And so then if they want to work on other projects, they can come in on Saturday and help with the robot or do whatever they're interested in.
Interesting. I'd like to share a structure that I just learned about at the last Midwest Regional from a team who has done well. I think they won the Midwest Regional a couple of years ago, and that's IMSA, the Illinois Math and Science Academy. The structure that the instructor has set up for that is the freshmen and the sophomores are actually doing the hands-on stuff. They're the ones touching tools, cutting things, turning screws. The juniors are not allowed to do that. Juniors are to instruct freshmen and sophomores on how to use tools, how to operate safely, how to build the robot. So they are essentially mentors to the younger students. The seniors are the strategy people. They are looking at not only the game, they're looking at the individual mentors and the building students and thinking about the social or the psychological kinds of things that might impact the team. And the seniors are actually the ones who decide the design of the robot, the strategy for the game, the different ways that they want to approach solving the year's challenge. And the great thing about that is it's a tremendous learning tool for students. One of the challenges, though, is if you have somebody come in who hasn't been involved, he's now a junior, or she's a junior, how do you fit them in? Where do you put that person? How do you welcome them into that stair-step process? So, getting back to IBM's answer, what's the best structure for your team? I think we pretty much come to the conclusion, well, that depends. That's what, it's what works for you in your environment. Anybody else?
I have more of a question for getting more faculty involved with the team. We really only have one teacher that's involved with us. And I'm an engineering mentor, and I work up in the Northwest side, and I travel all the way to the south side of Chicago, so it's a bit of a drive for me to get down there. And it'd be nice to be able to have a few more sessions happen without me having to be there. And so we've been asking, but it hasn't been successful in just trying to get a few more. Just like, even just devote a day or something like that once a week, just to show up. You don't have to even know to get anything. Just be there as the adult presence. Because sometimes with the students who'll be working on something, they'll get stuck. They just need a little push to move on to the next step. So that'd be great to get some good ideas. I'd like to continue working on it, but I can't be there all the time. So I don't know if there's.
Well, we actually just lost our instructor to Lane's team, so we were left without a mentor and going into this new season kind of wondering if we're gonna have a team, so we based on how we were getting more faculty. So what we did is we basically blasted out everyone in our school. We were like, this is what we're doing, this is a program that's been around for a couple of years, this is how we've been successful. Here's an info session if you're interested, come to. And that's where they would meet all the students on the team, and they could ask us questions personally versus like, our mentors there who would speak to them obviously about logistics and stuff that we would take care of, but they would be able to ask us questions and ask us how we've been on the team, all that information so that they could actually see how we work as a group, and then they would be part of it. And we guys would have the possibility to sit that way.
What team were you?
47, 87 team next year, we're a new team for
Okay.
the website.
We got pretty lucky this year with in terms of mentors and faculty that were interested in it. But our AP computer science teacher didn't start as a coach on the team, but he kind of became involved once we kind of like went to him, we showed him what it was about. He kind of looked at a couple of the videos and he kind of fell in love with it. And once he started, he came to like, convinced him to go to like one meeting, because that's what he came to one meeting and helped us out a little bit, and then he came to 2 more, and then 3 more after that, and then he just kind of became another coach. So he kind of fell in love with it too. So that's how we got a lot of our support.
We have, as the senior mentor, my responsibility in the state, I call them hatch them and match them, that start new teams and find resources, match them up with engineers or, I get approached sometimes by businesses. And there was one that approached me and I come to find out they were just down the street from Lane Tech. So, match them up. And I have had, with engineers and with teachers, I've had 2 very extreme reactions. Nothing much in the middle, but typical scenario is you'll introduce an engineer and like this gentleman was talking about, they just fall in love with it. And it just hooks them in it. They just, it becomes part of them. And the nice thing about FIRST is we teach probably in this order, ethics and then STEM, right? Everybody, yeah, that's what gracious professionalism. And I found that, if you really love FIRST loves you right back. And so these people find acceptance, they find camaraderie, and they find, interesting challenges, and they find it very rewarding helping young people. And then I had the other extreme reaction. I have had several engineers walk in, look at it, and literally go running out of the building. So the biggest challenge is oftentimes just to get them there in the first place. And I think it's the same with teachers. I don't know what it is that's going on inside of these people that leads to such extreme reaction, but it's just been my observation that's what happened. So if you have somebody come in and you get an adverse reaction, please don't give up. It's just for some reason that person wasn't ready or isn't of the right mind frame to be a good mentor. So the other thing I would say, parents and mentors, we have and are developing university outreach. So those of you who have been involved in FIRST, we have some really cool toys, right? It's really neat technology. And I would like to give you a little heads up. If you bring in an engineering student, most of these universities have some kind of community service requirement for graduation, put in so many hours. Well, coaching a first team is a really fun, good thing for an engineering student to earn those community service hours. The issue becomes if you don't coach them properly, they have a tendency to come in and want to do it for the kids. Now, I understand their point of view. They think they're helping by doing it. What they don't realize is if an adult or even a college student comes in and starts building the robot, they're sending the message to the student, well, I don't think you can do this, I don't trust you to do this. They don't mean to, but that's what's being implied if they kind of take the project away from the student. You can save yourself a lot of issues if, before you introduce them to the group, you just take 5 minutes and explain to them what it is a mentor does. And we've got an actual class on that coming up when they expand on it. But tell them, don't build the robot, don't give the students the answer, but ask them the questions that will lead them in the direction where they can figure it out. Because it's very satisfying to be the one who figures out the answer. It's almost condescending, insulting, if someone says, well, do this. So if you spend that 5 minutes before, you can avoid any issues later. Kind of got to structure more than the dynamics, right? What else have we got? I have a question for you. How do you handle conflict? How do you handle conflict in an FRC team? There's no one right answer here. And it's a project too big and a time too small, with a budget too small. There's bound to be some differences of opinion. Managing and dealing with conflict is a life skill. So, without going into the details of the conflict, can you think of an example where there was one and how it was handled?
Well, we had a conflict, not necessarily with budget or anything like that, but it was like I forgot which one it was. I think it was the Midwest region of Chicago, and some students on our team couldn't go because of classwork and they went to state school, versus another portion of the team could go, but it was most of the team that had to stay. And so what happened was when we were there, we just dealt with the idea of having to wear multiple hats. I mean, we already are a small team, but to reduce the size, it was a lot strenuous, I guess. But it still worked out because people came in after school and came right to the competition and tried to help, or came on Saturday and tried to help.
Okay. Anybody else have any? We tend to just normally avoid the subject because, conflicts are unpleasant, but the reality is if you handle conflicts properly, they can help the students grow, help them learn how to resolve issues without any kind of negative consequences. One of the things we really like to stress at first, if you go to a football game, we all have the expectation there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. That's how it works. So if you're a football player, that's all you know, that's great. But if you take that mentality of I have to win, you have to lose, and you take that if you build your life around that, it's not going to work out very well, like in a marriage or in a business situation. In those kinds of situations, you really do need to learn how to work through things and actively look for areas where everybody maybe doesn't get everything they want, but everybody can still come out with a positive outcome.
Can I ask you guys pass this around? It's just sign-in form, name, team member, what your role is, and the class at the top. and if you wanna leave that in the teacher's lounge afterwards.
Okay.
We're just trying to keep track of who's going to what, and et cetera. Thanks.
We don't have like a major conflicts with our team. A lot of things we try to stress with any design ideas or things like that, that usually there's no one right answer to the solution. And a lot of times we try to listen to both ideas and take the pros and cons and try to work out a way to figure out what's the best way to do that. And sometimes it's more of a, we'd like to do this, but it's like, we don't have the resources to be able to make this. And try to make them understand why a certain decision was made. So we haven't, I think that's kind of helped with everyone tries to help each other out and build a positive, work with each other and not try to say this is my way and, it's a team effort. And I think that's helped us avoid major conflicts.
For us, we try to avoid topics as much as possible, so we typically have like whole team meetings at least twice a week before we start working on anything, and that's when we talk about what we're going to be doing for the weekend. If there's a conflict, that means we get to talk about it and discuss both sides of what should be done and then decide on something. So going into it, we know we have an agreement on what we're going to be doing for that week. So it just sets the week off right.
Okay, so I've heard, one way to avoid conflict is just rationale, be reasonable, this, we can't possibly build this wonderful thing that you've designed. Because I have seen teams split based on, well, my design's better than yours. And we've also heard frequent meeting to make sure people aren't hearing things secondhand and it's all out in the open and everybody's clear on what's being communicated. Yeah.
Yeah, another way we kind of got rid of a lot of the stress and tension communications. I mean, our team was very large for our rookie year, and everyone wanted to do everything, There was like some kids in the team that everyone had to work on the robot, and there was kind of a lot of stress sometimes, because we met every day from 3:15 till 8 o'clock, and so obviously afterward, everyone's kind of tired, everyone's pretty stressed if the ability's not going exactly as they planned. And one thing we did to just kind of avoid problems is kind of just do like a team outing of some sort. We just kind of like go to this gaming lounge near our school and kind of play video games for an hour or just hang out, kind of blow off some steam. It helped us avoid a lot of like conflict between the teammates instead of like butting heads and egos kind of getting in the way of anything.
So active social involvement to, get to know the person more as a person rather than just someone you're interacting with in a structured environment. And that's a great idea.
For us also, FRC, we started we went into the FRC season after finishing 2 FGC, we had 2 FGC teams. So for us, it just kind of helped like having had worked together already for the entire year and having that dynamic. Like it's not the social outing obviously because we're still competing in robotics, but knowing how to work together kind of eliminated a lot of conflict just because we knew what each other's abilities were and what we were good at and how we worked together. So having group projects beforehand and actually getting to like learn how to work together helps a lot.
Anybody else have anything? I would say that, as a senior mentor, I have about 60 FRC teams that I keep track of. And we hope to take that to 65 next year. So, hear a lot of stories, and I have to say that I'm very proud of the students. I never have problems with students, really. A lot of the conflicts are between the adults. And one other thing that I mentioned here, because I haven't heard it said, is just kind of put it in perspective. Sometimes people will get really angry because my idea has been rejected or I didn't get my design, what the team's going to build. Think about it in terms of maybe take a broader look at it. Is this really going to impact your life? It's not like you lost your house or your dog died. You know, it's really not that important. It's certainly not a reason to get excited. So that's another strategy that sometimes can help.
Yeah, one thing to consider is just, it's for the kids.
Yeah. If you have a bunch of adults and they all have that same focus that we're trying to do this to help the students, you don't have any problem. It's when they lose that focus, and you know some of these teams, they just win, right? They think they're a football team. First is really not about winning, it's about the process of getting to that point, learning to work together, learning to form a team, all those sort of soft skills that schools sometimes don't teach so well. And the other thing I think you mentioned was there's no one right answer. You know, schools, I think, sometimes give the wrong impression. They make you memorize stuff and then you get a test and there's one right answer. In the real world, it's not that simple. And I think FRC does a really good job at showing students firsthand that's much more realistic. So anything else on dynamics? I mean, we've talked about the negative. Maybe we've got a few minutes left. Maybe you could share some of the positive things that you didn't expect to have happen, but did happen.
One positive that happened that I was shocked by was that we ended first in our regional. Like that was like the competition we ended first, not the whole final. But it was amazing for me because it's like I've been on this team for this is my last year, my fourth year, and it's like wow, finally. Because my freshman year was like, will we ever get there?
This was awesome. Thank you. Everybody signed a little form? I appreciate that. And Helen, she just got her PhD. She's a former 461 team member, isn't she?
Yeah, she was actually on the team the same time I was in high school. She's 3 years older than I am.
So that's why you don't have your PhD yet?
So that's why
She went to Northwestern and you're going to Purdue.
I don't, yeah. It would also help if I were enrolled in a PhD program.
Oh, okay. Details. You can take care of that when you get home.
A sentinel of the continent.
Yes.
No, I said a sentinel of the continent.
No, okay. We like to talk about our successes. You know, we'd love to see. I think Helen will tell you she started the team. She thought she wanted to be a lawyer. And I'm not exactly sure what she did, but she was working at the hospital, Northwestern Hospital, and the campus is just a little bit north of downtown there. And, you know, biomedical research. So, probably working on a cure to something that, I personally, I think that's more meaningful than being an attorney. So I hope all you young people will follow in her tracks. Yeah, you said you're a senior this year?
Yes.
Have you decided what university you'd like to attend?
Yes, we went to Marquette University.
Have you been accepted?
Yes.
Thank goodness. Oh, I'd love to hear
And
that.
I'm going to their school of engineering.
Any other students here seniors? Okay, where are you going?
I'm going to take a year at Northeastern, stay close to home, kind of transition, and then transfer to either UIC or some other college for engineering.
Okay. I saw another hand in the back. You're not on camera, but.
Going here.
Oh, you're going here? And this is Northwestern University in Evanston? I forgot to ask everybody. What are you going to take?
Environmental engineering.
Environmental,
Probably mechanical or electrical.
mechanical, or electrical? Well, those are very different.
Yeah.
CS.
Computer science? Got to keep it strong in all of the areas. Okay, everybody, I think we're supposed to let you go at about 10:00, so I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Was it helpful? Okay. Well, thank you so much for attending forums, and I'll give a plug either for technology. I highly recommend either Steve Florence or I've got to run to L251, wherever that is, and I'm going to be talking about control systems and sensors. If you don't know what PID is and you're not using it, I suggest you attend my class because it's a secret weapon that makes your robot really cool. And I'll be explaining it in a way that makes it easy to understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.